This is Alasdair versus Wise Burmese Burgundians matchup. Now, Burmese is a civ that I thought would be just about everyone's first choice. They are very good at rushing, since their halberdiers get extra attack per each age, 3 attack and imp, which makes them very strong for rushing. Since this is a 3-player map, it's too large for a rush to be effective, but Burmese are still quite strong. Burgundians, they get Flemish Revolution, which can be used to turn all villagers into military. Better than Halbs, a little worse than Champs, still very strong. And they have an anti-cavalry bonus, so a Flemish Revolution is very strong if you can use it at the right time. Again, on a 3-player map, not as effective. So we'll be seeing late game army from both of these players against Burmese. As Burgundians, you really want archers. They don't get heavy scorpions. They don't get great archers, so you could go hand cannons as Burgundians. You could mass a lot of onagers. One thing you don't want to do is fight with your own infantry or fight with cavalry, because halbs and champs from the Burmese will shred any infantry or cavalry the Burgundians can make. You can go halbs as Burgundians with siege behind, but you would still be in a bad position. Burmese is just the stronger civ. Alasdair and Wise, both UK players, I believe. Haven't seen much from either of them, but Alasdair is a very strong player. Tends to follow the force nothing meta, which is go up fast, make a lot of infantry, make a lot of siege. And the Burgundians player, I haven't seen much from, but I would assume we'll make a lot of trash based on the 1 or 2 games I've played with him before. We see both in Castle Age about the same time. 3 town centers for Burmese. Wise definitely doesn't have a solid build order, the same way that Alasdair does. You can tell from the mill being up, houses being in good farm spots, whereas Alasdair is cutting for farms. He already has 7, but Wise is in a similar spot. I think Alasdair will expand better, but so far very similar gameplay. Alasdair having a slight vill lead, he got his town centers up sooner. Wise still has this mill he could delete. A mill does nothing for you. It's a drop off for food, but this villager could walk to the town center just fine. Really would be better to have a house spot. Wise did use it for mill upgrades. So Burgundians do get eco upgrades and age earlier, which can lead to a very strong economy. However, it's more of an advantage on smaller maps. I think using Burgundians on 11 by 11 is probably a mistake, since they don't really have great army options other than Flemish Revolution. and their eco bonus is not as effective as it would be on a smaller map size. Alasdair will hit Imperial Age first. Already has mangonels out for his Onager upgrade. Wise has a slight Vil lead. Alasdair has lead in pretty much every other area. And he gets Onagers out, starts cutting. Whereas the Burgundians player will have the stronger economy by getting those eco upgrades, but by not cutting as quickly, you won't have as much room to expand your economy. And we see now Imp. This mill's still up, monastery up, just not efficient to have a building that you're not using. I really doubt he's going monks. Why have those buildings up when you could use them for farms and houses? See, Alasdair has some empty space here that he's putting houses in, cutting space for farms most likely, so he's definitely using his space more efficiently. This siege workshop, I prefer to delete it, but you can leave it up and create more onagers from there. The idea being you want to create a massive economy as fast as you can upon hitting Imperial Age. 4 town centers for Alasdair. We've seen a lot of players in this tournament go 6, 7 town centers. 5 town centers from Wise. It's a clear Vil lead already. Has more... doesn't quite have as much resources as Alasdair does though. University, blacksmith, castle. So opting for a castle can hurt your economy, costs 650 stone. So unless you're using it for your unique checks or unique unit, it's not really worth it. Trebuchets are good, but usually you would be better off spending that on other military. But again, the only real option the Burgundians has here is Flemish Revolution. Otherwise, you're fighting stronger army. You could go hand cannons, but we don't see any archery ranges. And if you're going hand cannons, you would not want the castle. So Alasdair has a strong, well, a potentially strong forward once he puts up more buildings. We see them coming up, more efficient economy, although he is sitting at 5k gold, which he can use to pump out army. He's doing that now. He is halfway, so this is when you should be adding army. Wise, cutting too wide. Without a choke point to fight in, the fighting will be in your base. Only 3 barracks, not enough. You want at least 6. Burmese champions are going to be very dangerous for the Burgundians player, who may be going Halb's champs. We do see stables coming up. Cav against Burmese is a huge mistake. Halberdiers are a unit that are anti-cavalry, and they attack slowly but do high damage to cavalry. So when they get a hit in, there's a long delay between that and their next hit. So just one hit from a Burmese Halb does quite a bit of damage against cavalry. So definitely not the play here, unless you are fighting in an open area, which, because Wise did not cut, The only open area he could be fighting in is his base, at which point you can't maneuver and kill economy because all the economy that dies is your own. So much siege from Alasdair. He's a very siege-heavy player. Siege and infantry, it's the meta. You see all these bombard cannons go down. Poorly microed. 2 castles, and Hussars, this will be over quick. Wise making the complete wrong units here. Alasdair could have attacked the castle with his champions and knocked it down. Instead, he's fighting units, which is probably the play here. He does have the stronger position, but you could just wall off Hussar, kill the eco, and it's game. We see him coming in now. Under fire from 2 castles, which the Burmese player could add bombard cannons. I would have preferred bombard cannons over all these onagers. Burmese infantry is already so effective at taking out a massive units that going bombard cannons to clear the buildings is a better choice than onagers. Wise has no economy left. The GG should be called shortly, and there it is. Shortly, sorry. And that's game 1. Burgundians against Burmese. Burgundians out-civved. See the players, not clear whether they play 2 or 3 games. If you go 0-2, the 3rd game is optional. Some people want to play it, some don't. Military, clear win for Alasdair. Economy, Wise had to go so gold heavy to buy those castles. And then ended up making Hussar, which is a trash unit. Alasdair had the better build order. And clear military advantage. Japanese Huns. Huns, not a civ you want to pick, because they cannot cut with onagers. They don't get onagers. By picking Huns, you're letting the other player decide when the fighting happens, where the fighting happens, and all you can do is respond. Why pick Huns? Huns have the best economy in a forest nothing game. They don't need houses. Farm should really have gone up here. Wise realized that, built a mill. So the Huns player will look like they're in a much better position until the fighting starts, at which point the Japanese player can create a very small choke point, use siege to kill any paladin that the Huns player has, using heavy scorpion, very effective. Japanese infantry, very strong, they attack faster. Again, Alasdair's picking meta infantry civs, which suits his style as an infantry siege player. See the Huns player on 3 farms. Cutting for more, could be cutting more effectively. This will questionable what they're cutting. On a 7x7, every tree you cut matters at the start. We see Alasdair already has 5 farms compared to Wise's 3. But bills, we see Wise has 15 to Alasdair's 12 because you don't need houses. 12 is the standard for 7x7. You go 12 vills, save up your food, go to feudal, sell your wood, drain the market, get a bunch of gold. Alasdair sells first. He will get a lot of gold. but doesn't matter too much. He has to spend that all on food, build some houses, whereas Wise can just keep pumping out vills. Can go to castle on your own time, fuel on your own time. He's finally getting his 5th farm, which Alasdair had 3-4 minutes ago. So again, Alasdair clearly is the better build. Got his lumber camp upgrade. Forgot to cut space for his 4th farm. So clearly a bit rusty on this build. But overall has the better build. Again, the Huns looks like they're in a better position, which they are, but they don't get any army options other than cavalry. They do get siege ram. Siege ram not good in the choke point. They do get paladin. Paladin not good in the choke point. Dies to onager. Siege ram dies to onager. They get cav archer, heavy cav archer. Not good in the choke point, dies to onager. They get halbs. Trash unit. Dies to onager. Decent in a choke point, but not against Japanese infantry. And siege. Huns don't get champion. You could go 2 hands, but not against an infantry civ. They get skirmishers. Trash unit dies to onager. Not good in a choke point. So there's a common theme to the Huns army, which is they're only good if there's an open fight. But unlike other civs that are better in open fights, they cannot dictate at all where the fighting happens. 3 town centers. I think most people go 2. Maybe Alasdair feels he could buy enough food to sustain production from 3 town centers. I'm not sure here. 4 farms definitely isn't enough, so he is relying on the food he's bought. We'll see if he can keep it up. I think it's definitely worth it just to get these vills out fast. So it probably is paying off for him here. Even if they go idle later, he'll have gotten more vills out earlier. Wise, poorly managing his economy, could add a farm here, several farms here. You really want to be going 10, 12 town centers as Huns. Not at this point, but at this point he should have at least 4 town centers. Could build a 4th here, which it looks like he may do if he builds a market. Okay, he does have 200 stone. This is still Alasdair's eco. And we see Alasdair ran out of food. But he does have the vills. So the 3 town center paid off, and he even passed the Huns player with his vills. Due to Wise not making enough town centers, not making enough farms. Another market. Will he buy stone? He hasn't. Now going imp here would be a huge mistake from the Huns player. You really want to do a heavy booming castle, go a late imp, because all that imp gives you is a couple of eco upgrades. It's far better to have more vills. But again, Wise not really pulling ahead of Alasdair, who only had 3 town centers. These really should have been up earlier, and right now he should be 7 or 8 town centers. This is definitely not enough. If you pick Huns, you have to boom hard. It's throwing away his advantages, Huns here. 16 farms for 4 town centers is too much. Could add farms, add towns. Oh, okay. Really poor choice here. Castle is a Huns player. You do want to go trebuchets at some point, but this killed his economy here. Would have been better to have 4 more town centers, a bunch more farms. Poor choice to make the castle. We'll see if he can recover. But that, along with not building more town centers, completely removed any advantage that Wise had. He is 20 vills ahead, but with Alasdair able to cut, that soon will not matter. Looks like Wise will stick with the 4 town centers. As a Huns player, you want to be double digits with town centers. Outposts too early. Alasdair just hit Imp. It's a 3-player map. He's not going to be in your base yet. Although having outposts is a decent decision in general. We do see a 5th town center go up. Could have afforded it a lot earlier. Could build a 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. No, more farms. There's no need to have this much food. You could make more town centers, a lot more vills. 10 idle vills. And Alasdair's coming. And this is a good thing to do. You don't want to push too fast against a Huns player. It's a common mistake a lot of players will make. But you will get to the Huns player in a weaker position. So if you boom hard, get a nice military, get a nice economy, and eventually get to the Huns player, you will be able to fight with full pop with much better army. At this point, we do see a 30 vil lead for Wise, although he has 10 idle units, more than Alasdair. Alasdair has more of everything except gold. Why? Because he didn't buy 2 castles. Okay. Now, the first castle was not good. The second castle, as a Huns player, is a very questionable decision. Your unique unit, you can make out of stables as Huns. You only need a second castle if you're making a lot of petards, a lot of trebuchets, which would be silly to do. So what is this? It's tower defense, apparently, which did not work out well last game. I guess these are very protected farms, but just a huge waste of resources. A lot of production buildings. Neither player is at full pop, which is a mistake for Wise at least. In a game like this, you want to be as efficient as you can be. Full pop. You go 250 vills as a Huns player. Delete some when the fighting starts. You can control group your villagers before the fighting starts. Delete 60 villagers in less than 1 second. So it's not a timing issue. As the Huns player, he has deleted vills. So much siege, and we're seeing this small choke point. Japanese castle, probably for trebuchets. Japanese have better trebuchets than normal because they pack and unpack faster. And we do see a trebuchet come out. Now what you could do, cav archers, halbs, decent choice, and it's open. What you could do is cut not quite all the way and treb from the outside to really shrink the blue player's base. Okay, Alasdair's opening this up, which is a mistake. You really want to be fighting in a choke point. But Wise just does not have the army for a Huns player. You should have 100 units at least fighting right now. Wise has 50, 60. Second castle going up. Are we going to see the samurai or mass treb production? This does control the choke point. Skirmishers, poor unit choice. Hussar, poor unit choice. And you're Huns, and you have 80,000 resources. You want to be making gold units. We do see Halb Trebuchet, which could easily be fought by Paladin Cav Archer, but instead we're seeing trash units. So this is Alasdair having a bit of fun with Japanese trebs. He's going to have to switch shortly into better units. Wise is massing ranged units. With the ranged units, every single unit you have can be attacking at the same time. Gold units coming out, that would be the play, but Alasdair has switched into his infantry, which are going to shred everything. You need a lot of Cav Archer, a lot of Paladin. Unless the Japanese player goes heavy on Halberdier, in which case you need a lot of Cav Archer, a lot of Halberdier, maybe. You don't, this is the problem with Huns, you just don't have the army you need. As Huns, you could run a lot of Paladins past. Wise is just reacting, trying to stay alive. If all you're doing is playing defensive, you will never win, because we do see Paladins killing Trebs. If all you're doing is playing defensive, then you will never be able to attack the other person. If you're only reacting, unless the other player is an AI, maybe you could be reacting well enough to eventually push, but this was a case of being out-civved. Wise picked the wrong civs, made the wrong units. Even if you made the right units, Alasdair still had the much better civ. 1,500 units killed. This is what happens when you fight with trash. More gold, again, not used, so it doesn't matter how much resources you get if you don't use it. And that means Alasdair advances.